So I had this really nice idea to script this whole draft analysis and provide some very concise, well thought out feedback. And I got to the end of it after about 45 minutes and was like, this really doesn't encapsulate all of my wants and thoughts when it comes to a draft league. I've been doing this for a long time. I have a lot of reasons as to why I'd get it. And I couldn't put that pen to paper. I really just thought it'd be better if it just kind of flowed out. So I pitched the whole script and here we are. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the draft analysis for season 2 of the revival of the Pokemon Premier League. I'm so excited. The Pokemon Premier League was originally way back in the day, one of the only 2 draft leagues that were really popular at the time. I'm sure there were others that I was not aware of, so I apologize if if there was a third league there that somebody was a part of and they're like, hey, you son of a bitch. Like this was it was one of the 2. It was the GBA and the PPL, and those were the 2 that went on, and they recently revived themselves for Gen 9, and I was really excited to get the invitation. And our draft finished up. The draft stream just ended not too long ago, so here we are with the draft analysis. I'm super stoked. I hope you guys are too. If you are, leave a like on the video. It goes a long way in supporting me and the channel. Also, if you guys like Pokemon Draft League content, we do have 2 ongoing draft leagues right now. We have the Pokemon Premier League on Saturdays. We have the Shuckle Premier League on Sundays, so ton of competitive Pokemon content coming your way. Subscribe. Closing in like we're close there. We're over halfway to 50,000 subscribers. It's my end of the year goal. You'd be helping me out by getting there, by subscribing and helping me out to just hit the subscribe button. Let's do it. Let's do it right now. I'll wait. Okay. All right. So also make sure you guys check out after this video, go check out the other coaches in the description of this video. So that way you guys can go check out their draft analysis. Cause if you like draft league content, they're all content creators doing draft league as well. So you'll find even more down there in the description. So all that being said, very excited to be a part of this draft. Really had the itch coming out of season 1 of the Shuckle Premier League, and this league definitely hit the itch for me. There was some different tier adjustments in this league in comparison, so there were some different choices that I made, which I'll do my best to talk about through. And we were, I think, 11 out of 16th overall in the draft, so I really was not getting like my top 1 or 2 picks. There were a lot of, people wanted Gouging Fire. People wanted Dragapult. There were, there was the option to get Speed Boost Blaziken. They had a lot of Pokemon that were banned in the SPL that were available, like Palafin, the Urshifus were there. So I was taking a look at it and I was like, how do I want to go about this? What do I want to do? And very similar to the last draft league in Gen 9 that I pursued, anytime that I can get my hands on something that is traditionally banned in Smogon OU singles, I want to take it. So the first Pokemon that I drafted was Zamazenta Crowned. Now it's a fighting steel type. It's got insane stats. 92 HP, 120 attack, 140 defense, 140 in special defense, and 128 in speed. Fighting and steel type. Now the downside, so I guess the downside is that because it is the crowned form, I can only ever carry the rusted shield to keep me in crowned form. But it does give me the Dauntless Shield ability, which allows my defense will be raised by 1 stage. This did get nerfed in Gen 9, so Dauntless Shield only activates once per battle as opposed to every time you come in. But it still does provide me an insane defense buff on top of 140 base defense. Absolutely nutty. Absolutely nutty. This thing hits like a truck. It tanks hits like a truck. We can take advantage of its dual stab with moves like Behemoth Bash or Close Combat, both 100 and 120 base power respectively. If we want to run a little bit more of a defensive set, it's got access to Body Press on 140 defense on a Dauntless Shield boost, just really hitting hard. It's got some other coverage moves with things like Crunch with access to Body Slam. It can set up not that you would ever need to set up its speed, but you can set up speed with like things like Agility and Trailblaze. Coverage with things like Play Rough, Wild Charge. It can set up its attack. I wish it got Swords Dance. I feel like if it got Swords Dance, it wouldn't be allowed, but it does get access to Howl, which does boost its attack by 1 stage. So we do have quite a bit of, we also have Iron Defense to raise our defense by 2, just in case we weren't already, physically bulky enough, we can go for that. So really just hits really hard. It doesn't have the widest variety of coverage, but like I said, it's not meant to be the omnipotent draft pick that just, it's not Mew. It's gonna do 1 or 2 things, maybe 3 things, but I was really looking forward to it. Next Pokemon on the way back. This Pokemon was nerfed in Gen 9, but with the Indigo Disc release, it did get rebuffed. It is recentered, I guess we can call it, back to its former glory. And that is Weavile. Weavile is a Dark and Ice type Pokemon. Super fast, hits super hard. It has 120 base attack, 125 base speed. Not too bulky, kind of. You know, I mean, like 70 HP and 85 special defense. You know, you could run like an Assault Vest maybe and sponge some non-super effective hits, but like fighting moves, it faints like a bug. So, but it did. So it got recentered with access to knockoff. It originally lost knockoff in Gen 9, but with the Indigo Disc, it does get access to knockoff back again. So, which is great. It's got access to a few setup options with things like Hone Claws or Swords Dance. It's got some nice coverage moves with like, you know, Poison Jab, Low Kick. Lovely ice type moves. So we've got Ice Shard for priority. We got Ice Spinner, being able to remove terrain. Icicle Crash, which has a 30% chance to flinch. We can run a loaded dice set with Icicle Spear to hit 125, you know, base power through that. You know, Shadow Claw, things of that nature. Trailblaze, Triple Axle, X Scissor. You know, it does have access to taunts, which could be nice. It has access to Baton Pass. We cannot Baton Pass any stats. But we can dry pass just into other Pokemon. So if we think my opponent is going to switch into a Rocky Helmet knockoff resist, so a Rocky Helmet defensive fairy type, I don't know. We can Baton Pass in front of that and continue momentum on our side, which is really awesome. So these two Pokemon in mind, huge fighting weakness right out the gate. You know, ground weakness, fire weakness, sure, let's call it what it is. But yeah, fire weakness, but fighting weakness, we got a ×2 and a ×4. We need to patch some fire weaknesses, right? We need to patch some of those weaknesses. So next Pokemon we grab, Screamtail. Never used Screamtail. Was looking at like the Pokemon stat chart to see, okay, what resists fighting, and like Psychic Fairy, there's a few that use Gardevoirs, Hatterene. But Screamtail looked pretty interesting. So Screamtail's got 115 base HP, 115 base special defense, and 111 base speed, 99 base defense. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. So it does only have access to photosynthesis, where Sunny Day is active, booster energy is used, the highest stat is multiplied by 30%, or your speed is doubled, or not doubled. Speed is boosted by 50%. So maybe like a booster energy set, probably not. We're not drafting weather on this team. So maybe like a booster energy set can come in somewhere, you know, if we really want to. But really what this thing is here to do is to sponge fighting type moves. With 115 base HP, it's going to be a monstrous Wish Passer. Okay, so Wish, it heals up to 50% of the target's base HP. So if we have a Pokemon that has like 60 base HP and we pass a Wish at 115 base HP, they're pretty much getting like a Healing Wish almost. It's crazy. Obviously, they don't have their status renewed, but absolutely crazy. It does provide us access to hazards with Stealth Rock, which I'm really looking forward to. You know, it's got its cool coverage moves. You know, its attack and special attack are both base 65, so you can run a few different things. You know, you run Player Off, you can run Hyper Voice, Dazzling Gleam, Ice Beam, like your one-off coverage moves if you want to. It does have access to Thunder Wave and Trick as well. Access to set up through Calm Mind and Bulk Up. Another Dry Pass user, another Dry Baton Pass user. So what does it do for us? It gives us a great Wish Passer. It gives us a great Stealth Rocker. Gives us a great fighting resist as well. So I really like this. I think it was a great pick. Next Pokemon, again, still, you know, one fighting resistant, you know, so we've got a ×2 fighting resist. We've got a ×2 fighting weakness, a 4x fighting weakness. We have a ×2 fighting resist. Let's go for another ×2 fighting resist. I almost said a ×4 fighting resist. No, we've got a ×2 and a ×4. We have a ×4. Now we get a ×2. So we get another fighting resist. We get a ground immunity. We get an electric immunity, and we grab Gliscor. Gliscor got like weird nerf buff kind of combo in Gen 9. So Gliscor still has its poison heal ability, so it does regain 1/8, I believe, of its HP. 1/8 of its HP when it's poisoned, which is great. So you can still run your Toxic or Poison Heal set. It did lose access to both Roost and Defog in this gen, which they removed a lot of Pokemon from having Defog, and a few less than that removing Roost. So it is what it is. It does give us a great, like I said, fighting resist. So 75 HP, 75 special defense, 125 defense, 95 attack and speed. So like, could be offensive as well. It does have access to set up with like agility and Swords Dance. Earthquake's hitting really hard. It's got access to knockoff. It's got a bunch of different coverage moves, which I won't go into. But one thing it does give us is great hazard support. So it does give us another Stealth Rocker. Gliscor gets access to Spikes and Toxic Spikes as well. It also gets access to Toxic. A lot of Pokemon lost their access to Toxic. this Pokemon has it. So very, very good Pokemon to get. Tailwind support, has Taunt, has U-Turn, so we're still having some pivoting. We've got some Dry Pass, we've got some U-Turn going on there. So we do have a 4x Ice weakness now on the team, and while Weavile and Zamazenta both resist those, you know, they're gonna get worn down eventually. So I do want another Ice resist on the team. I'm a really big fan of trying to prevent as much type spam as possible. So if you're missing like a dark type, you know, psychic spam can just be, you know, even if you have resistances, you don't have an immunity to it. If you can draft those immunities, the better, in my opinion. So next Pokemon we drafted was a ghost immunity. We wanted a ghost immunity. This Pokemon also helps out a little bit of ice weakness depending on the ability as well. We've got some really solid fighting resistances, and this Pokemon is really bulky as it is, so I'm not super worried about doubling down on or tripling down now on a fighting weakness. Next Pokemon we drafted, longtime fan of this in Draft League, really hoping I can pull it off and make it work with the team. We got Snorlax. Snorlax has some great abilities. It has immunity, so I can't be poisoned if there's like a big poison spam team. If there's, you know, I don't know if anybody drafted any of the Loyal 3, the Banditos 3, whatever came out in the Teal Mask DLC. But I can't be poisoned, which is great. Thick Fat, I receive half damage from fire and ice type moves. So fire weakness on Weavile and on Zamazenta, gone. You know, we can patch that with Thick Fat. Ice weakness on Gliscor, gone. Thick Fat, great. Then we have Gluttony. Gluttony makes it so that when we eat berries at half max HP or less, or excuse me, we eat our berries at half max HP or less instead of the usual quarter max HP. So berries like the Iapapa berry, oh my gosh, the other big berries that aren't citrus berry, the ones that do 33% or more, we can eat those at half max HP, which is great, allowing for like some really good belly drum sets if we want to. It does have a litany of coverage. You know, obviously you're going to run physically a defensive Snorlax. If you run special attack, you know, like Ice Beam or something, sure, you know, do what you're going to do. But it does have access to some disruption with moves like Encore. It does have access to Yawn. Pretty much, you know, it's able to sponge statuses with access to just really strong facades as well. Really bulky Pokemon. Really appreciates the wish support from Screamtail as well, in my opinion. Like I said, it's just got some really good coverage moves. You know, Ice Punch, Iron Head, Zen Headbutt, Wild Charge, the new Supercell Slam. You know, if we're one-on-one against a water type, we can hit that super effectively. So lots of cool tech here. It's got access to set up with moves like Curse. It can set up with Belly Drum, as we talked about. So really looking forward to this. I am very excited about Snorlax. Not as excited as I am about this next pick. These next two picks, actually. So hang tight, because the next pick was round 6, and I was shocked. I don't even think I had this Pokemon on my radar as far as like really looking at the team. I shouldn't have drafted it because I have just a lot of glaring weaknesses already. But this Pokemon was still around round 6, and I was like, there's absolutely no way I can let, like, we're over halfway through the draft for some people. I need to grab this. Next Pokemon I grabbed was Hisuian Arcanine. Now, if you guys watched the post-game interview with Joey in the SPL season during the quarterfinals, I talked about how Hisuian Arcanine was one of those Pokemon that I just really, really, really wanted to use. Because, I mean, 115 base attack with Rock Head, where we don't take recoil damage from moves like Double Edge, Head Smash, and Flare Blitz. Bruh. I'm just saying. And it's still double, you know, and it is still very similar to normal Arcanine, where it can also run special attack. So 115 base attack, of course, is going to be pretty much what I lean into, but 95 base special attack with access to, you know, things like Flamethrower, you got Hyper Voice, Scorching Sand, stuff like that can be very beneficial. It's got some really good support with additional hazard support. We've got another rocker. We've got 3 stealth rockers now. It can go for Will-O-Wisp. It has access to Morning Sun, so it can heal itself. And it has access to Priority and Extreme Speed, which is crazy. So love this Pokemon. Really toss a choice band on it. Just click buttons. Very, very excited for this pick. Next Pokemon. So different. I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. So different in this league than from the Shuckle Premier League. This league has so Pokemon have their own points when you draft them. When you assign Tera captains, they have a different price. So something can be very, you know, cheap on the low end of your drafting power, but if you want to assign it a Tera captain, that costs a lot of points out of your Tera bucket, if you're with me. So we had 120 points overall to draft 10 to 12 Pokemon. For our Tera captains, we had 28 points, and of those, we needed to assign 2 to 3 captains. So this next Pokemon, while it was very cheap, it's actually the 4th cheapest Pokemon on my draft. It is one of the more expensive Tera options to choose from, and I'll talk through that. The next Pokemon I grabbed, and I had my eye on it when I saw that it had eligibility to Terrastalize. The next Pokemon that I grabbed was Hisuian Braviary. So yes, going ahead, we've got Hisuian Arcanine, we've got Hisuian Braviary. Where else are we going with this? We're just going back to Hisui right now. So Hisuian Braviary, Psychic Flying type, 110 base HP, 112 base special attack, right? 83 base attack, okay. Like, you know, maybe a bulk up or something might do good there. 70 defense and 70 special defense, 65 base speed, so like not too fast, very bulky, hits like a truck on the specially offensive side. What's so good about this Pokemon? So great abilities with Sheer Force and Tinted Lens. So Sheer Force, this Pokemon's attacks with secondary effects have 30% extra power, but it nullifies the effects. So if we go for something like Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball is a base 80 power move, and it has a 20% chance to lower the target's special defense by 1 stage. We no longer have a chance to decrease my opponent's special defense, but now Shadow Ball is 30% stronger. So 80 times 1.3. That's now 104 base power ghost move, right? So Sheer Force can do well. Obviously, you want some of those moves, depending on the situation, you do want some of those moves to have those secondary effects, but if you don't want them and you just want to hit as hard as you can, Life Orb Sheer Force is the way to go, because even with Sheer Force, we don't take the Life Orb recoil as well, which is fantastic. I never knew why that works. If someone knows in the comment section, let me know why somehow the Life Orb and Sheer Force just don't co-op together like that. I've never understood that, but hey, listen, I'm gonna take it. The second ability is Tinted Lens, where this Pokemon's attacks that are not very effective deal double damage on a target. So whereas not very effective moves would normally deal half damage against that, Tinted Lens now doubles that back up to just a full base value. So really there isn't a resist anymore, which is great, which is another reason why I thought this Pokemon would make a great Tera captain. Now, natively, regardless of terrestrialization, I think it's got some great abilities. So it does have access to set up through agility, boosting our speed by 2 stages, which is great because we're not that fast to begin with. We do have access to set up through bulk up if we want to go maybe a physical set that our opponents aren't expecting. We do have access to Calm Mind, boosting our special attack and special defense. Really, and again, a litany of moves that can help us out. It's got Pivot and U-Turn. It does have Reliable Recovery and Roost. It is our first form of hazard removal with Defog. It's got a bunch of different special coverage moves that we could run, but really the key to this Pokemon, in my opinion, is its signature move, Esper Wing. It's a base 80 special attacking move, Psychic type. It has a 100% chance to raise my speed by 1 stage, and it's a high crit move. So it's really good for being natively slow, natively bulky, and just being able to consistently and reliably boost while dealing damage, because really, unless you're a dark type, along with that Tinted Lens ability, again, we already talked about, there's not really a resistance there. So being able to pop off and go for things like that, I think can really get the ball rolling with a Calm Mind set, potentially a bulk up set if we really, really wanted to. It does have Tailwind support, and it does have pretty much the same physical moves that regular Braviary would have. So when discussing terrestrialization, very commonly, we need to choose 3 types. We need to choose one of its normal types, and then we do need to choose 2 other typings. So I went with Flying Tera type, Fairy, and Ground. So with Flying, we are dropping our Psychic type. We are keeping our Ground immunity. We are losing our Dark and Ghost weakness, which is awesome. Being able to boost moves like Air Slash, being able to boost moves like Acrobatics can be beneficial. Also chose, so Fairy is going to remove our Psychic and our Flying typing, obviously. So we will now be able to be hit by ground moves, but we are removing our Ice weakness and our Electric and our Rock weakness that we had with our Flying type. We're also able to remove our Dark and Ghost weakness as well. We now actually resist Dark types as well as Fighting types as well, so we can continue to set up on those a little bit more. And Terra Blast now turns into a Fairy move, whether we're running it physically or specially, to just add that a little bit of additional extra coverage there. And then lastly, we have Ground typing. Ground typing allows us to become very obviously an Electric immunity. So instead of being Electric weak, we are now Electric immune, which is great. And Ground type is another one of those that Hisuian Braviary didn't really have good coverage for. So turning Tera Blast into a Ground type move will be very good for us overall. Like I said, this was very cheap on the draft side, but from a terrestrialization perspective, I really, really wanted to try this out. I don't know if I'll regret my choice grabbing a Pokemon and just eyeballing it so early on as a Tera captain. We'll see, but I'm really looking forward to it. So one key point that I do want to mention in that last analysis was that Right now, Hisuian Braviary is our only defogger. So I wanted to go with another defogger, obviously. And we talked about already, I do like drafting those Pokemon that have immunities so they can't just, so opponents' Pokemon can't just continually spam against us and wear us down. So wanted to grab another immunity, wanted to grab another defogger, went with Decidueye. Decidueye is pretty all around like good, in my opinion, you know. 78 HP, 107 attack, 75 defense, 100 special attack and special defense, and 70 speed. Grass and ghost type, so we do have a good all-around grass type, in my opinion. We can be bulky or we can be offensive. Ghost type gives us a good fighting and a normal immunity, which is great. Decidueye has access to defog, so we do have a second form of hazard removal. And we do have Roost, so we have reliable recovery as well, which is great because, like I said earlier, a lot of Pokemon seem to lose both defog and Roost, so being able to grab two of those, in my opinion, is really, really nice. Decidueye's got some really great coverage. It does have access to priority with things like Shadow Sneak. It can also Dry Pass. We've talked about a lot of pivot potential. It can go for U-turn. It has priority in Sucker Punch. It can set up with things like Swords Dance and Nasty Plot. Poltergeist is 110 base power ghost move. Just hits absolutely hard. Very, very excited for this Pokemon. And we're running down the list right now. So after Decidueye, you know, we started off really, really fast and just kind of tapered off. So I wanted to bring some back. And this is another one of those Pokemon that 9 rounds in had not been drafted yet. I feel like someone always drafts it. I feel like it's never a Pokemon that goes undrafted. So again, found myself in a position where let's go for it. So 9th pick overall for me was Jolteon. This is a classic. I've used Jolteon before, and I think it's gotten actually a lot better in Gen 9. So it does have access now to set up and Calm Mind, which is great. Being able to boost that 110 base special attack is always good, just to hit a little bit harder there. It does find itself, so it's got Volt Absorb. It makes us an electric immunity, and then it does also have Quick Feet, so it acts as like a choice scarf if we're statused by either, if we're either, you know, burnt or poisoned or sleep, but we can't, you know, maybe like a sleep talk. I don't know. Quick Feet could be niche, probably just running Volt Absorb for the additional electric immunity there. Calm Mind is great. We do have access to set up a fast screen. We've got speed control with Thunder Wave. We can go for a wish on this thing. It has base 65 HP, so I don't ever see us doing that, but we can. We can also go for Yawn as well. Really, I find Jolteon being locked into kind of like a 4-move syndrome where it's Thunderbolt or Discharge, Volt Switch, Shadow Ball, and then usually like Hyper Voice. It used to be HP Ice, you know, whatever that 4th move is. What it did get buffed in actually with the Indigo Disc DLC, in my opinion was a buff, is it got access to Alluring Voice. So Alluring Voice is a new move. It is a fairy move. It is 80 base power, and it has a chance to 100% confuse a target that had a stat rise this turn. So maybe our opponent thinks we're going to switch out. They go for a setup move. We hit it with an Alluring Voice. We can confuse it. But really, it just gives a little bit more coverage because ordinarily, you know, dragon types are going to sit in front of us and just kind of sponge those hits. So Alluring Voice being able to hit those dragon types just a little bit better, in my mind, works out that much better. So really like Jolteon. Hits hard, hits fast. Love it. 8 points left. I need a water type. I need a grounded poison type. And I need a second Tera captain. So we got to play really smart with our points at this point in the draft. Next Pokemon that I grabbed, historically really didn't have much significance between the forms, but drafting this Pokemon, we do get access to all 3 forms now. And we're continuing the running joke that I draft only Pokemon that are native from the Hisuian region. Got Basculin. So drafting Basculin does give us access to Red Stripe, White Stripe, and Blue Stripe. We get all 3. Go America. It does have access through those forms, depending on the form that you choose, to 4 different abilities. So Reckless does boost our recoil moves by 30%. Adaptability boosts our stab. Instead of 1.5, it's now 2 times. Rattled, if I think it's like Bug, Bark, and Ghost. Bug, Dark, and Ghost boost our speed. And then Mold Breaker being able to attack through abilities and stuff like that. The big point here is that Reckless and Adaptability hit very, very hard. But another good thing about this is that with White Stripe Basculin, we actually get a defensive boost through the Eviolite held item, boosting our defense and special defense by an additional 30%. So while our defense is 65 and our special defense is 55 naturally, sure, we can run a Red Stripe or White Stripe and run like a Choice Band or Choice Scarf and just hit that much harder. But being able to run Eviolite on those, boosting defense into the 90s and then special defense close to the 90s as well, it does give us a little bit more contention. It's got priority in Aqua Jet. It hits hard with things like Wave Crash, Head Smash, and it can also continue to pivot for flip turns. So we've got a lot of pivot momentum on this team, which I really, really do like. At this point in the draft, 6 points left. Need a grounded poison type. Need another Tera captain. Really not too much that fit the budget on there, so went with the only thing that really did fit the budget. It was Grafai. Now, Grafai is new in Gen 9. It's a normal and poison type. It's got some really good abilities. So it does have Prankster, so my status moves have their priority raised by 1. I can't affect dark types. That's been around since Gen 7, but Prankster, which is great. Poison Touch, the contact moves that I have a 30% chance of poisoning, so I can spread some status around if I so choose to. And I've got Unburdened, so my speed is doubled on held item loss. I have 110 base speed. Doubling that at most, what is a max speed level 100? 350. Doubling that puts me at 700 speed. It's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Sure, there's Pokemon with Unburdened that, you know, like Halucha and Sneasler, but for 5 points, 5 points, that's really fast. That's really, really fast. 95 base attack, 80 base special attack, so can really hit both well from both the physical and the special side. It's got some really great access to Prankster, you know, to the access to moves that can pair well with Prankster. So things like Parting Shot, things like Encore, things like Taunt, things like Switcheroo. It still gets access to U-turn, so we can swap around. And then we can continue to hit really hard with things like Gunk Shot and Sludge Wave on the normal side. One thing that I want to talk about are the terrestrialization types that I chose. So this being a grounded poison type, it was 11 of my 28 Tera points, so we fell right in the parameters of 17 and 11 to maximize our Tera points. Grafai, I chose Poison, Flying, and Dark. Poison allows us to continue to, we do lose our Ghost immunity that we have on there, but we are able to boost things like our Gunk Shot and our Sludge Bombs and the Sludge Wave Poison Jabs that much harder, which I enjoy. We still keep a little bit of a Fairy resistance there. Flying type, so we remove our ground weakness completely. We're able to hit super hard with, so Unburdened, being able to lose an item on and get our speed boost. Acrobatics we have access to, so all of a sudden that becomes a 110 base flying type move, boosted by our Tera typing. That could be very beneficial to us as well. And then dark typing, we are now immune to psychic types, which we can set up on now, and our knockoffs are going to hit that much harder on that. So I really like that. I really like that choice. I think it fits well on the team for what it is. And overall, I had 1 point left. 1 point. There's really not too much in the 1 point tier that people are like, that, you know, some people might just save their 1 point, right? I could have, but I figured why not and just go for it and grab something that might fit the team. So I grabbed Ariados. I don't have a bug type on the team. So we do now have a bug type. We have another grounded poison type if we do need it. Ariados has, you know, its typical Swarm and Insomnia abilities, which Swarm maybe, but Insomnia, I don't ever see that being brought. But we do have a Sniper, so critical hits, critical hits are damaged, critical hits are multiplied by an additional 1.5 times, which is great. It does have access to set up an Agility and Swords Dance, Focus Energy. You know, we can also continue to Dry Pass with Baton Pass. It doesn't get access to U-turn. It can set up Toxic Spikes. It does have access to Toxic as well. But a big thing about this, for 1 point on my draft, it has access to Sticky Webs. Now, all of a sudden, that Hisuian Arcanine that might have ran, you know, Jolly can run Adamant Band. That, you know, Jolteon can run Modest Specs. Things like that just we would need to maybe run Timid or Jolly just to continue to outpace. We can all of a sudden run Adamant and just hit like a truck, which I'm super excited about. I don't see Ariados come into more than maybe a couple matches just because, but it does provide that extra parameter for my opponents to think about, like, is this his webs game? Oh my god, is he bringing webs this time? Is he going to? So really looking forward to this. I like the team overall. I think it's a great team. I didn't make any transactions during grace period on this because I really liked where this ended up. It's a little bit out of my comfort zone, but it's enough out of my comfort zone that I'm excited to use it. And I hope you guys enjoy it. Please let me know down in the comment section down below. What do you guys think of the draft? You like it? You not like it? Are you excited for week 1? I hope you're excited for week 1. Week 1 is up next Saturday. Very looking forward to it. Hope you guys are too. Don't forget, down in the description, plenty of the other coaches from the Pokemon Premier League. Go check out their draft analysis. Go follow them for their weekly matches as well every Saturday. Don't forget, if you're new and you like Draft League content, tomorrow we have the Shuckle Premier League draft analysis going up. Super excited for that one as well. Plenty of Draft League content coming your way over the next 2 months. All that being said, I want to remind you guys to be great and do great. I'll see you guys next week on game day. Later.